extra video. I was not expecting to make this video or post this video, but that's because I wasn't expecting to buy these items. But I think what I'm about to talk about will actually be helpful, and it doesn't necessarily apply to this type of item or inventory, but the sort of the way of thinking around it may help. So I am going to make this its own little video. Tomorrow I'm going to post the first part of the Highway 70 haul, and then Monday I'll post the second part of the Highway 70 haul. I have been working on sort of processing some of those items, and I decided it would just be better to sort of combine everything and then split it into two parts and kind of break down why I bought the things I bought, what to look for, what not to look for, and that kind of thing. So anyways, today kind of took it easy. I got, some of the processing done, I didn't go out picking, I haven't done a lot of listing yet, although I'm gonna do some tonight. But yeah, just kind of took it easy, got a good sleep last night, and Saturday has become my pizza night, which my dog loves. The look of joy on her face when I walk in with pizza on pizza night. It's just become a thing now. So I don't really want it, like the Domino's is not very far from my house, so I don't really want to pay like another $10 for delivery fees and tip. So I usually just go in and place an order and then pick it up. And while I'm waiting for the order, I went into Goodwill. And I really, in my head, was like, unless I just find something absolutely amazing, I don't even want to buy anything. I'm just kind of wasting time right now and waiting for my pizzas. And as soon as I walk in, I go to make the first turn around the back, and I notice on the shelf there's 3 boxes that are sealed in like plastic wrap. And so I look at the top of them and I see patterns, like sewing patterns. And so as soon as I saw them, I was like, oh great, here we go. Because I've been wanting to get not into selling patterns, but I've wanted to start to incorporate it into my inventory. And at times I've sold patterns before, so I know enough to feel confident in at least selling them. But I'm in the South, and I know people sew like all over the world in the country, but Southerners are really big on their crafting. They're really, really big on sewing. So I find patterns like everywhere, and I can get them very cheaply. So I've wanted to incorporate them into my inventory. And so when I see these 3 big boxes, I'm like, I have to look. So I pull the first box down, and the first thing I see is Vogue. And if you sell patterns, and you know that Vogue patterns are some of the better patterns to sell. So then I, kind of move the plastic wrap a little bit, and I try to like just barely push the other pattern back, because you could really not get in there at all. But I'm kind of wanting to look and see what else is in there. And I see another partial Vogue word, and I'm like, okay, there's Vogue patterns in here. It doesn't mean that they're all Vogue, but I see at least 2 Vogue patterns. And if there's 2 Vogue patterns and there's 3 boxes of patterns, odds are that many of these are Vogue patterns. So I take one of the boxes, the bigger box, and I put it on my shoulder, and I start walking up towards the front to get a shopping cart. And this is something important I'm going to say, and I know some people don't want me to talk about things other than reselling, but the reality is that reselling is a business, and your mentality makes or breaks your business. It makes or breaks everything you do in life. But if you're going to go into business, you have to really sort out your mental processing. Like, you have to do that. That's a huge part of it. So as I'm walking up there with the box on my shoulder, my head, my brain, and my gut, they start having an argument. and I'm not hearing voices. Some people I've learned don't have an inner monologue. So sometimes when you talk, like, I've learned that when I talk about like sort of thinking out loud in my head or having this sort of conversation in my head, some people are like, "Are you okay?" I'm fine. Totally normal for me. But my mind and my gut, I have learned over time, are two very different things. And I'm going to explain how this works for even people who don't have that inner dialogue going on. You will have different types of feelings about any decision you make. And generally speaking, one is like your mind and maybe your heart, and it's combined. And those can be good things. But then you also have your gut that is there. And your gut essentially is your intuition. Your intuition has been built over your lifetime from all the experiences that you've had, all the failures, all the successes, all the insecurities, everything. Your gut is there to help you survive. And it was a hard lesson to learn that sometimes you just have to listen to your gut over everything else. So I'm going up there and they're having this battle, and my mind is like, what are you doing? What, like, you just got all this inventory from Highway 70 and you have a box of patterns on your shoulder and you want to deal with all these patterns. What are you doing? This is absurd. They don't even make that much money. Why are you doing this? My gut is like, let's go get a shopping cart. Like, my gut is like, we're gonna do this. This is awesome. This is exciting. This is exactly what you wanted. This is what you need. And my mind is still in there like, just turn around and put the box back. You don't have to do this. Well, my gut won because I've been doing a pretty good job of listening to my gut more than my mind. And why that is important. Now, this isn't all the time. And obviously, like, you will grow over time to where it all sort of sinks and you can sort of sort things out pretty easily. But especially when you're first building your business, you're going to have a lot of self-doubt. And when you go to people and you say, this is what I'm going to do with my life, it's gotten a little bit easier for resellers, I think. But my growing into the business, like, I would be like, yeah, I'm going to, like, resell stuff online. And it was like, people would look at me like I just didn't want to work or something. Which was so absurd because I was literally, like, working 2 jobs most of the time. Like, I'm a very hard worker. But their mentality was like, she just wants to stay at home and be lazy. And they also were like, that's some crazy dream. Like, you're never going to be able to make a living at it. It has gotten better, but it's still tough. Like, a lot of people don't understand it, or they just don't think that it's viable. And people can also get into your head with their opinions about how you should do things, when you should do things, their advice. And while their intentions are good, 9 times out of 10, they have no idea what you're doing. They don't have your experience. They don't have your personality. They don't have your life experience. Like, they don't have the insight that you have to make the decisions you need to make for yourself. So a lot of times in life, in business, in reselling, other people's voices, other resellers' voices, even some resellers who are way up there, and you would think that their advice is perfect for you. Their advice might not be perfect for you. All those things can get into your head, and it can cause a lot of self-doubt, because in the beginning, you're going to have failures. You're going to have mistakes. You're going to flounder. You're not going to make as much money as you want to make. Even seasoned resellers deal with this. I've dealt with this a lot in the last 2 years, transitioning from part-time to full-time, and especially with all the outside life things I had going on. A lot of self-doubt creeps in, and that doubt is what makes you sort of perpetually afraid to take risk, because it's your ego, it's your mind coming in and saying, what are people going to think if you make this decision and it's a bad decision? How are you going to feel if you make this decision and it doesn't work out for you? Can you really take another mistake in your life? And so your gut, while it wants you to survive, sometimes to survive, you have to take risk. You have to go out into the unknown, or you have to, like, take a different direction. just because your gut's there to protect you, protecting yourself doesn't necessarily mean not taking risk. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, and your mind will set in and say, this isn't safe, this is a risk. You don't need to make this decision. Now, this is all over patterns, right? But this was happening, and I think it's a good point to make when you're finding inventory or when you're making decisions for your reselling business, that there will be moments where you see it and you're like, I think this is going to work. I think this is a good idea. And instinctually, your gut's saying, let's go for it. Like, this, you can do this. This is a good idea. And there's something that you've grown over your lifetime that is feeding that. There's some pattern or there's some information that your mind has that understands that this is actually a good decision. So you want to get out of your head. You want to get out of your head and trust your gut, because in your mind, oftentimes there are other people's voices that are dictating your success and your failures. And in my experience, I've had far more failures listening to other people's opinions than I have just trusting myself and trusting my gut. So enough of all that. I'm going to break down how this decision played out. I'm going to flip the camera around so I can show you and sort of break down why I made this decision, why my gut made this decision, and how it has panned out for me. And the numbers are very interesting. I'm going to break down the math, and then everybody can have their opinion about whether or not it was a good decision. But the good news is that I didn't listen to other people's opinions. I did what I needed for myself. All right, I'm going to flip the camera around real quick. When it comes to sewing patterns, you have either uncut, used, or cut. Now, used usually will be listed in a category, like, not category, but it will be kind of defined as like somebody pulled it out and it's not what they call factory folded. And it's kind of like if you get a tent out of its packaging the first time, or a Christmas tree out of the box the first time, it never seems to go back the way that you got it out. So that would be sort of used. And that is something that you want to talk about in your description, is that it is not factory folded, or it has been taken out of the package and unfolded. Because some people are particular about that. Some people want to buy it as if it is brand new, because it's hard to tell with sewing patterns if it's actually new or not, because the sewing patterns are sold with they're not sealed, basically. So always put in your description if they look like they've been unfolded, or if, they're extra crinkly or something. That kind of like play into it. Uncut and factory folded is basically new, like it hasn't been taken out, it hasn't been unfolded, and nobody has cut the pattern to size. So that will obviously go for more than a cut or used pattern. Typically used, like if it's just been unfolded, generally speaking, it doesn't affect the value that much. It's just something that people want to know. But if it has been cut, depending on the pattern, it can affect the value. So that is sort of like the three, what am I trying to think of right here? The three conditions in which you find patterns. Now, obviously, because they are paper, you want to watch for any like water damage or anything like that, any spotting and that kind of thing. The outer envelope, if there's like spotting for these vintage patterns, that's pretty typical. But if it's super bad, or if it looks moldy, or like it's gotten water damage, you don't want to sell that. You're gonna make somebody very angry. So these two boxes are all used. that seems upsetting, you know? That seems like my mind was right. You made a horrible decision with your life. What are you doing? But we are also about to discuss the various values of patterns. So if you're looking at, let me see if I can find one. A good portion of these ended up being Vogue. So if you're looking like at Butterick patterns, or I think there's some McCall patterns in here. I don't know if I can find any. Simplicity. I believe this was sold out of like Walmart. I could be wrong, but like it could have been sold other places, but I remember growing up these were mostly at Walmart. Those, if they are vintage or a very sort of trending fashion, generally you're gonna get maybe like $4 or $5 for those, plus shipping. And that's if they are uncut. So they're not super valuable. Then you have Vogue, and let me see if I can find like a sort of a regular Vogue. Well, here's one. It's not, there's several types of Vogues. There's like the very easy Vogue patterns. I think there's like a Vogue Basics. These will do decent because they are attached to that like Vogue name. And they do tend to have like sort of a higher design styling, like more fashionable, sort of like, you know, upscale fashion, I guess. I don't really know how to like describe it. But more iconic looks that were vintage. Those will do pretty decent. Usually, like, depending on the style and what is currently trending, somewhere around like $6 to $10 plus shipping if they are uncut. Then you have Vogue patterns that are attached to designer names. Like this is like probably mid-90s Calvin Klein. And then we got like Adele Simpson, Jeffrey Beam, Anne Klein, John Anthony. Just fashion designers have done basically collaborations with Vogue and their patterns. These, excuse me, what are you whining about? You're fine. No, ma'am. No. Be patient. There's something she wants. I think she thinks we're having a plush night, but we're not doing plushes tonight. The sort of designer collaborations, they can sell anywhere from like 10 all the way up to 50 if they are uncut, like $50. So the designer Vogues are some of the better patterns to find. Now, like I said, all of these have been cut or they have been unfolded and refolded in a way that does not make me comfortable selling them like individually. So while it may seem like this has a very low value because the prices I just mentioned are all for uncut patterns and these are all cut, if you lot them together, these still do pretty well. I believe, if I remember the number right, I have about 100 patterns here. So I'm probably going to do like the Vogue ones. I'm probably going to put like 4 of them together for like $25 to $30, just depending on the designer. And then the sort of less important ones, not that they're not important, but like they're not designer or anything like that, I'm going to put those probably in lots of 10 and sell them for like $20 to $25 plus shipping. So I don't know. Most of them are Vogue. I would say we can get like probably 15 lots out of this pretty easily. And if I'm selling them for like an average of $25, it's like $375 worth. So that is still pretty good. When you list cut patterns, you want to be very clear that they are not in great condition. I'm going to say that there is wear to the envelope, extensive wear to the envelopes. I'm going to say that they have been pulled out, unfolded, cut, and crammed back into their packages. Like, so that when people get them, they know exactly what to expect. They don't have their hopes high or anything. I would say more than likely, just to be safe in your title, put the word read in all caps somewhere on there so that they know, okay, I need to read the description. But also your pictures, what you want to really do is take them out of the envelope. You don't have to, definitely do not unfold the whole pattern. Do not do that to yourself. But you want to take all the components out, lay those out, lay the envelope out, and basically take a picture of all of it on one side and a picture of all of it on the other side. You do not have to unfold everything. So that is how I'm going to deal with that. So we're looking at about $375 in cut patterns that are not in the best condition. And then we got the uncut patterns here. Some of them do look like maybe they were pulled out and refolded. I'm gonna have to just examine them a little bit closer when I go to list them. So those, I would say, okay, it's been unfolded and put back in the package, but nothing's cut, just so people know what to expect, but it's not gonna affect the value that much. So again, with the vintage styling of these like McCalls or the Butterick, I always want to say Butterwick. They are probably only, I'm probably gonna get maybe like an average of $4.50, maybe $5 for some of these. It just kind of depends. I did not look up all these individually. I just know the averages of everything. So we ended up with like about 30 of those. So say I get $4 a piece times 30, that's 120. So now we're looking at like $495 in patterns. Then we ended up with about 30 of the like Vogue, just sort of like very easy Vogue. And then we got just one that says Vogue patterns, like very standard. These are just the more standard Vogue sewing patterns. So we got about 30 of those. I would say I'll probably average, let's just say $7 on those. So that's like another $210. So I've already lost count. We're at $495, so it's like $705. We'll just say $700 to make it easier. But then we got 35 of the designer patterns attached to designers. I have not looked these up. Some of these can go for that $30, $40, $50 range. Not many of them, like Ralph Lauren is a really good one. I do have a Christian Dior, 2 or 3 of those. So those will probably do like 25-ish, somewhere around there. But there's just a lot of like designers. Claude Montana, which I think that ended up just being somewhat of a typical 90s brand. But we have like a couple Calvin Kleins. Here's one of the Christian. So we got some good like designers in here. I'm still like, even though they're uncut and everything, if all of them is, I'm gonna say that the envelopes have wear. I'm gonna show any splitting in the sides like that, any major damage like these corners that are sort of crumpled up. I will show all that just to be on the safe side, but typically people are more concerned about the actual pattern. So just giving like a conservative estimate of like $15 a piece. At 35, we're looking at like 400. Oh, my math skills just went totally out the window. 300, 450, right? I think. No. Yes. No. 5 times 75. 300. Do the math yourself. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's try that again. 30. I did the math for the first one all over again is what I did. 35 times 15 is 350 plus the 75, so 425. No, absolutely not. Why am I'm struggling with this. I'll put the number up there. Altogether, I can't remember the exact math, but I took the math and then I lowballed it again and just said I have somewhere around like $1,000 worth of patterns is what I'm expecting. The lots will be pretty easy. That seems like a crazy amount of work, but it's a little under 100 items, and I've many times listed 100 items in one day. But patterns are pretty easy too, because again, you just pull them out, take a picture, like lay the pattern beside the envelope, take a picture of the front and the back, put in your description, which you can copy and paste, you know, that all the envelopes are rough, they're uncut or cut or whatever the description is. The other thing is you can do similar listings, because a lot of these have already sold, so there will almost always be sold comps. So you can do similar listings, but if you do a similar listing, watch out for the pattern sizes. Like this is a size 12 through 16. And the way they do patterns and still did them is that they have sizing groups. So sometimes it'll be like size 4 to 12, or, you know, 12 to 20. Like they're all do their own thing with that. Sometimes you'll find it like all sizes. You don't want to like look at the backs here, because they put like a standard sizing chart, so it'll show all the sizes. That does not mean that that's necessarily what's in the pattern. So you want to look for where it actually describes like the actual pattern sizes. So if you do a similar listing, you want to watch for that. Change it in your title if you need to, change it in the description if you need to, and change it in the item specifics, because you don't want someone, that's a very important detail that they need to know, and you don't want to get a return on a pattern because you didn't change that information in your similar listing. So between the pictures being pretty easy, the fact that you can do similar listings off of sold comps, these sell pretty fast. And you can also do like you can do a similar listing off of a sold comp, or you can do it like if you have multiple that are, say, like the very easy Vogue, you can go in and do it and just change the pattern number in the pictures and make sure the sizes match, so that you're not creating entirely new listings. So these tend to get listed fairly quickly. I would say I can pretty confidently get all of these listed in about 7 hours. So for 7 hours worth of work, totally worth it. And then I got all these also. Lastly, and this is the extra cool thing with patterns, something I would doubt that most people may not think about. These are all the ones I'm not going to sell at all, because they are just too unfolded, or the envelope, you know, is a little too iffy, or like the cut parts are too small and crumpled. Just for various reasons, I decided I'm not going to sell these. Like for instance, this one is like unfolded and it's just like super puffy, and like it's just not the ideal condition to sell. But what does this remind you of? This reminds me of tissue paper. And tissue paper is an excellent packaging material. Now, it is not a good packaging material for bulk, like the bulk of your packaging. And you don't typically want to package fragile things in just one type of material. But tissue paper works really well for like more fragile materials that you need like the material or the packaging material to sort of cling to it or fill in gaps or what have you. And it can also be used for things that aren't as fragile, that you just need extra padding to fill the box, or you need a little bit of protection, you know, like a book or something like that. This makes really good, super good, lightweight packaging material for things. So all of these that I cannot sell are becoming packaging material. And it's cool too, because like this has a vintage aesthetic and especially the ones that have like Vogue written on it and stuff. So especially the people who are buying vintage items, because obviously they like vintage items, they you know, think that's a cool element. Like, and then other people get excited when they see people reusing materials for packaging, because, you know, it's like helping cut down and reduce like all the plastics and papers that we produce to package things. So some people get excited about that. Some people will like the vintage aesthetic of it. You can even use the like newspapery things. These are a little bit more sturdy to package some things in. The only thing you don't really want to do with things like this, other than use it as your only packaging material, is you don't want to put like new clothing or linens in something like this, because they are vintage paper products, and vintage paper products, really, no matter how well they've been kept, other than them being wrapped in cellophane, will develop that aging acidic like vintage smell to the paper. And you don't want to wrap like a new designer shirt in something that could sort of like, I can't think of the word, absorb the odor of the packaging material. But like books, media, semi-fragile items, or to fill in boxes, or, you know, mugs or around mugs before you wrap them in some bubble wrap or whatever, really good filler. And I have this big shopping bag, like full. It's probably like a good solid like 20 pounds. This alone, what I will save in buying packaging materials, will cover the cost of the 3 boxes. So just my saving the materials for packaging and not having to buy this packaging paper will save me the $30 I have invested in all 3 boxes. You wouldn't think you can make so much money off of patterns. But when you can find things in bulk like that, and especially when you notice that some of that bulk purchase is like something that is slightly more valuable, so your average is going up higher, totally worth it to me. Not to mention that things like patterns, sewing patterns, it draws in people who buy those. They are always going to buy those. Very few people are like, oh, let me get on and see if I can find just one sewing pattern that I like. You know, like, they're not generally casually getting into just sewing. People who buy sewing patterns are always going to be looking for sewing patterns. So if you can establish like a good customer base for something like that, incorporate it into your inventory, then they're going to keep coming back. And many times they'll buy like multiple of them at one time. So you also build your store following, you build your customer base, and they generally will start leaving you good feedback because, you know, you've provided a good service and a good product. So there's a lot of different benefits to it. And that is where you really want to sort out what is important to you, what you're willing to do, how much space you have to store things, what your priorities are for reselling, what you enjoy doing, what versus versus what you absolutely hate doing, and figure that out for yourself, and then don't listen to all the advice. Obviously I'm giving you advice right now. But what I mean by not listening to the advice is, don't listen to what people say you don't want to do, or you don't want to deal with, or what is too much work, or what isn't worth your time. Because it could very well stop you from taking a risk or purchasing something that ends up doing really well for you and your business. And ultimately, your learning experiences and the risk that you do take is going to develop you into who you want to be within your business and within reselling. So I hope that helps on multiple levels. You've learned a little bit about patterns, options for shipping materials, and also just the hard lesson of really listening to your gut over everyone else's voices. So yeah, I'm going to get off here. The rest of the week, I am mostly listing. I am doing a lot of processing. I am going to post those 2 haul videos, and then I'll have some other content. I am about to start making more content on how to. Things that help along these lines, like the mentality or the mental process, the way of looking at things differently, than what is sort of standard, and all of that. I'm going to start posting a lot of that type of information. I'm not going to give you the basics because you can Google that very easily, but I will go into depth of how I've built things with the algorithms and my decision making. But yeah, it should be a fun-filled week of listing and getting things sort of reestablished after the Highway 70 yard sale. I hope y'all have a good rest of the weekend and a good night, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.